those papers are delightful to read. There is so much information in them. First, he said, in a single republic, all the power surrendered by the people is submitted to the administration of a single government, and the usurpations are guarded against by a division of the government into distinct and separate departments. In the compound Republic of America, different than any republic heretofore on the planet, the power surrendered by the people is first divided between two distinct governments, federal and state, and then the portion allotted to each subdivided among distinct and separate departments, judiciary, legislature, executive. Hence, a double security arises to the rights of the people. And I would put in here, if the states understood this and understood that their responsibility was to protect their citizens from usurpations of constitutional power, they were supposed to be a bulwark against what's been going on. The different governments will control each other, Madison thought. The anti-federalists maybe were right, but Madison thought. At the same time that each will be controlled by itself. So what do we do in this case? We encourage our state, our legislators, to understand the doctrine of state sovereignty and the resolutions of 1798. Each state is duty-bound to interpose between the people and the federal government. I'm going to touch on some things that I can't get completely into, or we'd be here till July. And you probably have things that you need to do tonight. So, well, but July?
I got time.
Okay. What about those enabling acts that said the dreaded forever disclaim all right and title? Alabama's enabling act. That the people inhabiting the said territory do agree and declare that they forever disclaim all right and title to the waste or unappropriated lands lying within the said territory, and that the same shall be and remain at the sole and entire disposition of the United States. No statement about extinguishing title in the Alabama Constitution, but they've only got 2.7% public lands because the federal government understood at the time its responsibility. Louisiana, 4.6. That the people inhabiting, and this will get old. I'm just gonna. There were a bunch I picked and chose. Louisiana, same thing. Nebraska, 1%. North Dakota, South Dakota, same thing in their enabling acts. Very same wording. They gave the federal government the time necessary to extinguish title to the unappropriated. How's this worked out for us? The 12 western states have been denied their rightful lands and were not admitted to the Union on an equal footing. The equal footing doctrine is terribly important. Terribly important. We are at a huge disadvantage. Our suffrage, our voting, suffrage back then was talked about as voting, was synonymous with the word of voting. And I'll just touch on this. This is not on my PowerPoint, I forgot about it. But the western states, the eastern states have plenty of room for population growth. That gives them more House of Representatives, correct? Mm-hmm. We don't. We've actually been denied some part of suffrage, of voting rights in this country because we can't populate those lands with people. And I'm not talking about overrunning them and raping them. And I grew up here, and just managing and maintaining the lands so that they don't burn would put people to work for 20 years.
Yep.
Okay. I get really excited about this. I apologize for that, but it's been on my heart for 25 years, and people are waking up, and it's just about as exciting as popcorn with real butter on it. You know? Okay, the following 4 pages will show us part of the story that the Resolution of 1780 is still part of the supreme law of the land. Since it was created before the Constitution, remains an obligation of the federal government until such time as it is amended or rescinded. It should be followed. All of the western states have been denied their rightful claim to the land within them. If the land was under state jurisdiction, now I'm going to get into some of the practical stuff. I'll talk about more of the legal stuff in a little bit, but I want to get into some of the practical stuff. If the land was under state jurisdiction, many of the funding problems we face would be solved. People say Idaho can't afford to have control of those lands. That would be like me owning the Army surplus store saying, you know, I better not increase my inventory because I just won't have the ability to do that. You know, I won't make any money off of that new inventory. I'll sell it and I'll lose money on it. Well, maybe I will, but that's because I'm stupid. But the point is, the lands will provide the income to manage the lands. You have a question?
Not a question. You sounded like Otter there for a moment.
Otter?
Wow. Them are fighting words.
He and I had this conversation, and you sounded just like him when you said we can't afford to take these lands
But
back.
you do realize I was saying it rhetorically.
I do.
Thank you.
And he was saying it honestly.
I don't know if I can make it home.
Somebody get us some water. You look parched.
If the land was under state jurisdiction, the supposed prohibitive cost to manage them would be offset by the income derived, which we're going to look at. It's an amazing story of the land and how it's, when it's properly used. And I don't think the states are even properly using it as well as they could. Some of these slides didn't turn out very good. But what this one is about is when I do statistics, I use the government statistics. So that when, pardon me?
Against them.
Against them, so that someone can't say, well, you made that stuff up. No, this was right out of you can't read it. Source for federal lands, it was a table that I got from the federal government. All these totals were given in a table that was in the U.S. General Services Administration Office of Records. And what these are is federal land management percentages. Now I put it in an Excel spreadsheet, which you can't see either. Okay. We need to have that thing. Okay, I'm going to just give you some information. Nevada, 109,000 square miles, of which 70,000 are federal. Utah, 82,000 square miles, of which 52,000 are federal. Alaska, 571,000, I'm rounding this stuff off. 365,000 are federal. Idaho, 82,000, of which 52,933 are federal. Oregon, 95,000. Oregon's really been in the news. 61,000. It's 53% federal. On down the list, I don't want to waste our time, but Wyoming's 48%, California's 47%, Arizona 42%, etc. Till you get to the biggest eastern state. The most land in the biggest eastern state would be New Hampshire, 13%. Florida, 13%, Michigan, 9%, probably includes Flint, Arkansas, 9%, Virginia, 9%, all the way down to Iowa, which is 0.27%. The point is, up until Colorado, the federal government followed its constitutional mandate, and it extinguished title to the unappropriated lands and gave them back to the state where they belong. And I have all this information. If you want it, I can share it to you in Excel spreadsheets that will look bigger than that on your computer. What happens when Idaho gets their land back? Better management, reduces fire hazard, and creates jobs in forestry and related industries. How many of you are familiar with the concept of spin-off jobs? Manufacturing jobs have, I work in retail. There's very little spin-off from retail. You know, unless I sell you a pair of boots that falls apart, then somebody's going to have to fix them. So I've helped a local bootmaker. But manufacturing has tons of spin-off, and we'll look at that. Federal government is relieved of the massive cost of management with no concomitant income, or mismanagement. Forestry jobs and related industries begin to increase. This is, of course, recognizes that all of this would take time. I went to some turnkey reports on what would happen if Idaho invested $1 million in job creation in the forest. These are the spin-off jobs, direct and indirect. Reforestation, 17.5, 12.95. That's how many jobs are spun off from the $1 million investment in forestry, in managing the lands. And I'm not going to, again, I don't want to take all this time. I can send you these reports if you'd like to see them. But the spin-off is incredible. And I got rid of some of them because wind, we don't want spin-off jobs that require government subsidies, do we? So I removed them from my calculations when I did these calculations. What kind of information or what kind of effect it would have. What about a $2 million investment? You can't see it all. Well, at any rate, it's safe to say it would have resulted in $167 million in income in the state of Idaho.
Wow.
In 2012, 260,000 acres burned in Idaho County. 75,000 tons of carbon was ejected into the atmosphere. 100,000 animals were killed. I don't know how many watersheds were permanently marred and may take 100 years to come back. All because we couldn't manage that land. If that land had been managed, there was over $3 billion worth of timber that went up in smoke. Wow. $3 billion. I'm not going to read through this, but basically what this points out is that environmentalists say that logging really doesn't make money. And the reason they say that is because the people that they're looking at as their examples is the U.S. Forest Service. Now, I'm not bashing the U.S. Forest Service. They've got a hard job. It's an agency that shouldn't exist. Okay, we understand that. But they're here. And I learned as a county commissioner, you have to work with what has actually happened. If the state was managing that land, I'm going to show you the reports I used to give 4, 5, and 6 years ago. This is what I had at the time. These are some comparisons in Montana. State forest revenues, $25 million. Expenditures, $12 million. Does it sound like they made a profit? Yeah. Harvest volume, 191 million board feet. The 10 national forests spent 173 million, and it cost them 215 million. What do you think? How long will I stay in business? Do you know why it continues to stay in business? Because you're subsidizing. I'm going to go through these rather quickly. Average revenues, state forest, $156. Montana spent an average of 65,000 board feet of $65 per 1,000 board feet of harvest to administer its timber program. And it made $156 per 1,000. That's a profit. Look at what the Flathead National Forest did. They spent 106 and made 79. They spent 66 in Kootenai and they made 86, so that's not bad. Apparently in Idaho they're a little smarter than they are in Montana. Actually, that was the Montana Kootenai National Forest. Western region, again, all the way down, you can see the comparisons. Is it okay if I kind of blow through these? Yeah. The point is, the states are already managing the lands within them that they have control over better than the federal government is. Gallatin National Forest, the average hourly wage cost and the labor hours to produce per 1,000 board feet. So Gallatin National, it cost them $15.63 an hour wage, and it took 11 hours of work for them to produce 1,000 board feet of harvest. In Montana, approximately the same wage, but it only took 4.5 hours to produce the same amount of timber. A lot of people standing around. You know how many it takes to run that shovel. Net timber growth. This shows that the timber growth and the timber available was similar. We're talking apples and apples, or fir and fir, I guess we should say. Grand fir and grand fir, tamarack and tamarack. We're not talking about, it's not a stacked deck against the federal government, against the Forest Service. So I'm not saying that the state had much better timber to deal with. The timber was similar. It had the same same acre density. It had the same speciation. It had very similar components that went into these studies. Timber-based, this is in Minnesota, suitable timberland, Superior and St. Louis. Standing timber, very similar. Hardwood mixture, softwood mixture, very similar. Potential productivity within a few board feet per acre, cubic feet per acre per year. And in that particular case, there's your revenues. In 1990, the average for the state was 20, the average for the Fed was 18. Why such a big difference? The average costs, land departments in Superior. Look at the costs, average $12. Federal government, average cost $34 to produce that lumber. Harvest administration costs, same thing. The Forest Service costs for harvest administration were nearly 30% higher than the land departments. They have so many more reports they have to run, so many more. And the fact is, I logged for many, many decades, many years, and most of the foresters that I met, they knew what they were doing. They knew how to make the land produce. They knew how not to rape it. They knew how to produce it in a manner. I tell some people I've planted more trees than you've heard. It's a renewable resource, is it not? Amen. Timber sale preparation costs, same thing. Average 4 for the state, $7.50 for the government. Boundary county land ownership. I thought I'd throw on some boundary county statistics. Federal land percent, 61%, state 13, private 25, city county 0.2. Urban is 0.3%, agriculture 8.5%, forest and boundary county is 90%. Okay, so there's that. How many of you are familiar with PILT and SRS? Because you're not allowed to use your land, the federal government pays you in Boundary County, sends your commissioners, is it Title 10? It's Title 10 funds, SRS funds, secure rural schools, over here, and PILT, payment in lieu of taxes. You can't tax the land to derive an income. You can't tax the income of the people that are making a living on the land. So the federal government takes money from the eastern states in the form of welfare and gives it to Boundary County. Do you like being on welfare?
Yeah.
No. The average? No. In 1999, there's your payments. I did all this. So total bill payments for Boundary County from 99 to 2015 is $3.42 million. That's 38 cents an acre they paid you. Do you think you could have made more off an acre of timber than 38 cents? Terry.
Since you're in Boundary County, can I give you a handout that I made 2 years ago that will illustrate exactly what you're talking about? Let me just give it to you and you can explain it.
That's PILT. SRS, a little bit more money.
It's kind of hard to see, but focus on colors. This is 6th grade stuff. Look at the white.
Okay.
Okay?
We'll get to that in just a minute. So the PILT, this SRS, Secure Rural Schools, this is legislation that has been brought back every year for many, many years, and it's beginning to get more and more difficult to pass this legislation in the United States Congress because the eastern states are choking on this money that's just sent to these states. Why are we giving it to them? Well, because they can't do anything on their land, except that they're actually not telling the eastern states that. You can talk to eastern state legislators. They have no idea what's going on out here. They have no idea. They're just waking up. South Carolina recently passed a resolution encouraging the federal government to give the western states their lands back. Just recently, I think it was last year. Anyway, I'm getting way off the subject. That's $2.99 an acre. How magnanimous. Total average, $1.49 an acre. What do you think? Used to be able to buy a hamburger with that. Used to be. Gary just gave me some pictures. Who do you think owns the green? Yeah.
Technically, we do.
We do.
They're just mismanaging it for us.
Who do you think is holding that land illegally in escrow? Let me put it that way. Okay. Private timberland is the red. Is that, well, I'm kind of colorblind, Terry. Is that red?
Yeah.
Okay. State of Idaho, blue. Kootenai tribe is pink.
That works.
It's a good color.
Pink, I don't see any pink. Oh, right there, okay. And Nature Conservancy, which is private, is black, okay? Oh, you want to, they're all the same?
Yeah, I just made some
Yeah.
extra ones in case somebody wants one.
Pass
It's
them
a great
along.
illustration.
Good information.
How do you
All the green.
support yourself on the land that's
can't.
available? You
You
can't.
can't.
the whole
Especially in
point.
counties like Custer County where they got 3% of 7,000, 6,000 square miles, 5,000? I can't remember. Custer's a big county. Okay, moving along. Cost of land management, federal versus state. Federal multiple, this is out of a report called Divided Lands in the West. It's put out by a company called PERC, which is, I always get this wrong. They're an environmental company that believes in the free market. They believe the free market will answer the problems of environmental issues. And they're right. Federal multiple use lands, $5,261 million in revenue. Expenses, $7,216 million. 2 billion here, 2 billion there, we seem to talk real money. Anyway, they lost a net revenue of minus $2 billion. State trust lands, net revenue. Look at the expenses and the revenue, state trust lands. These are 5-year annual averages, and they're of the states and some of the states in the West. 4 states I think we cover. On average, the states we examined earned $14.51 for every dollar they spent. The federal government lost money on their work. Cost of land management. U.S. Forest Service all the way down. Revenue per dollar spent, 10 cents. They got a tithe back. I think they went the wrong direction. Bureau of Land Management, $3. Montana, 8. Idaho, 2.80. New Mexico, 41. The average was $14.51 for every dollar spent managing state trust lands. $14.51. Timber management. The federal government lost $148 per million board feet sold. 1,000 board feet sold, excuse me. The Bureau of Land Management lost 197. Montana made 60. Idaho made 126. The average state trust land income was $114. The Forest Service generates 32 cents for every dollar it spends on timber management, and the BLM receives 38 cents per dollar spent. By contrast, Montana and Idaho earn an average of $2.51 for every dollar spent on timber management. questions? Yes?
I might be jumping the gun here. Yeah, I'm seeing you just focus on the timber as far as the resources, and you had a small picture in there showing a resource that's even much more valuable, especially today.